Welcome to Satsunami. Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Satsunami. I'm Satsunami and thankfully returning to the Satsunami crew is my very good friend Adam, who is going to be talking about The Raid 2 with me. Adam, welcome back.
Oh, hi Satsu, thank you very much. It is wonderful to be back. I much missed this last week. It just didn't feel right last week. It was like a piece was missing.
Yeah.
And now I know it was Satsunami.
Oh, I mean, you're still not getting paid, but thank you.
Oh, screw this then. Throw my headset down.
Yeah, just storm out. It's like, I'm done. I can't handle these conditions.
You're lucky I don't know Silat Penkak, or you'd be in trouble.
Yeah, that is true.
Or I don't own a pair of hammers.
Oh yeah, that's true. Or a baseball bat. Well, do you actually own a baseball bat?
No, I have a baseball, but I don't have a baseball bat, unfortunately.
What happened there then?
I don't actually know. I think I just like the idea of having a baseball, but not having a bat.
Okay, that's fair enough.
I'm weird like that.
Yeah, that's it.
Oh, you know what it'll be is because I used to like The Great Escape when I was young. So I wanted to do the thing where he throws the baseball at the wall.
Yeah.
He doesn't have a bat in that, so you know.
You know what? I'll accept that answer. Moving on. So yeah, you might not pick up what we're going to talk about after that. No, I'm kidding. So yeah, today we are indeed talking about The Raid 2. So it was a couple of weeks ago that we talked initially about The Raid 1 and how it really transformed our views on what makes a good action film.
What makes a good film, to be honest?
Well, that is true, yeah. And from start to finish, it is just a roller coaster of both action, emotions, just everything really, isn't it?
It's got it all.
Yeah, it really has. It's just, if I could say, it's just, and then leave the ellipses there. It's just ... Yeah, that's how I would describe it. It's just that.
True Raid fans will understand that.
Yeah, only true Raid fans. If you want to leave a comment underneath this podcast episode, hashtag only true Raid fans will know.
Put a hammer emoji up. We'll all understand.
Yeah. Link your hammer emojis down there. The Raid left such an impact on, just the genre and I suppose action fans worldwide, which is kind of a unique circumstance, isn't it? That this low budget, and I don't mean low budget in a derogatory term, I mean it was a low budget film, the first one, and despite that, it somehow stormed. I don't know, did it storm the box office when it came out for the first one?
That's a good question. I don't actually know. I mean, I think it maybe did because it certainly became financially viable, so to speak, very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
I think it turned out a very decent profit, which is why the director Gareth Evans was given the expanded resources to make a sequel. Yeah. But I can't tell you whether that was initially or whether that was just once the DVD came out and everything and the money started piling in there.
Yeah, and now he just sits on a throne of Raid money. You would think with a film so widely beloved by action fans, you kind of wonder, because that is the worry, that when you get a film that is so good and it's so hyped and it lives up to the hype, you think, how is it going to match? How is a sequel, rather, going to match the legacy that this has left behind? Yeah, that's what we're going to talk about today. Did The Raid live up to the hype? And yeah, spoilers, probably yes. I mean, would you say so?
Oh yeah, definitely. Well, it lived up to my hype. In fact, I think it exceeded my hype, to be honest. Call back to a previous Satsunami episode.
Yeah.
No, for me, certainly. I don't know. I don't feel I've seen much negative about it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I feel I only seen positive things. Whether people thought it was better than the first film, I guess that's debatable. But still, I don't think people hated it. It wasn't like a sequel that came out. People were like, "Oh, this is trash,"
Mm-hmm.
Even if you didn't like it as much as the first one, I guarantee you probably still liked it a lot.
It is so. Last time we kind of talked about how the Raid 1 was very, brutal, and the action is very, I don't want to say claustrophobic, but you know what I mean. It's very in your face. It's very visceral. almost.
Yeah.
But I mean, this film takes it to like, I mean, if the Raid 1 was up at 100, somebody broke the dial and cranked it to 200, because this film just doubles on the previous one, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, like
What?
they not only do they crank it up to like 200, as you say, but because you get more lulls in between the action, it's like the dial is then being turned down to 0 again. So it's like
Yeah.
a roller coaster version. We like, and then you're like, oh my god, we're down for a minute, and then you're back to an action scene again. So the dial is just going left and right like crazy.
Yeah, that's amazing. No. Yeah, so thank you all for coming. Go see the Raid 2. Yeah, before we actually get into, spoiler territories and everything. So yeah, here's your warning now. We are going to be probably spoiling quite a bit of the film. So if you haven't seen it yet, please go away and feel free to watch it first and then come back and listen to this. And this is me being nice here, being, please go watch this. It's really good. But yeah, before we actually get into deep diving into the main film, I'm actually quite curious. When you watched The Raid 2, did you watch it right after or kind of quite close to when you watched the first film?
What was the Raid? Did the Raid 2 come out in 2014?
Yeah.
Am I right?
Yeah.
Right. So I saw it. I saw it 2 years after. I saw the Raid, the original Raid, in 2012. So the year after it was released. I loved it, and then I heard they were making a sequel. And I went to the cinema to see this when it was released, and let me tell you, it is probably the best experience I've had watching a film in a cinema.
Wow.
Like it wasn't on one of the biggest screens in the cinema I went to, but it was still a big screen. And it was quite a small audience, but you could tell like everybody there had like seen the first film, and everybody was like super hyped and super pumped to watch this, and we were all just there, just like in awe as it happened. And then I just remember the film ended and the credits came on. And you know when usually credits come on, you usually get some people will sit and wait for a bit.
Oh yeah.
But other people will just like get straight up and go. I swear nobody moved for about a good like 2-3 minutes. Everybody was just there like, what? Just like taking in what we'd seen. So it's one of the best things I've seen. I just remember watching on the big screen, just like my mind being blown. I can't remember how old I would have. My 22-year-old brain being like blown open by this film. So like about 2 years in between. What about you?
Yeah. I'm just trying to remember. I think I watched it within the same week, at least. So,
nice.
As I was saying in the last episode, I watched this in the first Raid film in about 2015. So, I went to the cinema to see Dread. Like, again, another amazing film. But after I watched Dread, like, everybody kept saying, or rather talking about the Raid. Friends, strangers on the internet. Things, like people kept saying about how amazing this film The Raid was, and it is one of those things where you kind of think, right, okay, yeah, sure. I'll watch it. If you know me, which I know you do, Adam, like, I'm terrible for watching things recommended to me. I'm like, yeah, I'll watch it another time, and then I never do, and yeah, that's caused great rifts with certain people, but I won't go into that. And yeah, I watched it in about 2000 and I want to say 14, 15, I think, because it was my last year of university. It was just me and a couple of friends and like my flatmates and everything. We watched it. I was absolutely blown away by it. It was absolutely fantastic. And then I think the same week, it was definitely in the next couple of weeks anyway, if at latest like the next month maybe, yeah, we ended up watching The Raid 2, and again I was just blown away by how impactful it was, both with the action and how much it kind of not only lived up to its original, but how it built upon like a really basic premise. Because I mean, the original premise is drug lord at top of building, police go up building, police bugger up, and then they end up, well, it's not a happy ending, but it's like they eventually get out of the building and everything. Yeah, spoilers for the first one. But, like, eventually they get out, and yeah, it's, you think, okay, it's a basic premise there. How are they going to build upon it? And my God, they really build upon it with the sequel. Kind of before we jump in, can I point out something? Like, what were your first impressions? So, see the very opening scene? So I really want to talk about this because
we're just going to spoilers, will we?
Yeah. So this is
We're in now,
this is your warning for spoiler territory, guys. See the opening shot where it's just a wide shot of an open field, and in the corner you've just got the action going on. Initially, it's not something you would expect from a film like The Raid. At the beginning of like the first one, of course, they build up Rama, and who is the main character, going, preparing to go raid this building and everything. And, he says his prayers, he says goodbye to his family, and then it kind of slowly builds up to the action. With this, it's rather like a peaceful build-up until you realise what's going on, if you know what I mean. Like, maybe I'm just reading too much into this, and yeah, feel free to let me know if I am. I feel as if it's quite like an impactful moment, because it's like, it kind of shows how minimal, I don't know if this was intentional or not, probably it was, or probably it's just me reading too much into it, but it's the fact that, so basically what's happening in the corner of the screen is there is a guy getting dragged out of a car, beaten and bloodied. It's revealed to be Rama's brother, who is, in the first one, he was like at the top of the building. He was like the right-hand man of the main villain. And eventually it ends up he is just being dragged to a field, and he basically gets told by these goons that he's getting too big for his boots. And then he gets shot in the head and executed, and then roll credits. But something I thought was quite interesting was the fact that they made his focus at the very beginning so minimal. They show this kind of huge shot, but it's like a huge kind of expansive landscape, and they just show him as like a tiny speck, as if, like they're minimising like his role in the kind of overall picture of the film, if you know, or not even the second one, because in the first one he was a big deal, wasn't he?
Yeah, but it's kind of like it's kind of showing his like how he's just this small part of this much larger like criminal machine. Mm-hmm. And can I say that was I think that was some excellent film theory that you just
thank you.
There. I was in awe there. I was like, damn, that is some high skill analysis there.
Oh, no, thank you.
I totally agree. To be honest, I think it's a really good point. And you have to presume as well that the director chose that shot to be there, so you have to presume that there was a reason for it. And I think you've given an excellent reason for why it's there. I think as well it's a really good tone setter for the film. But the fact is, you talked about, and you perfectly described the Raid one as being very claustrophobic, which it is, because it's just set in this one building for the most part. But now, like for the Raid 2, we are exploring out. We're in multiple different locations and everything. It's a much wider. It's not only a much wider physical space that the film takes place in, but also like in terms of there's far more characters. There's more character development. It's actually that wide shot you can almost see as like. This is me definitely reading too much into this now, but you can almost see it as showing the expanded scale of the sequel compared to the original.
Oh no, totally. I mean, it is like I almost feel as if low key though it's just Gareth. Is it Gareth Davis? Evans, sorry. Honestly, I was like, is it Davis or Evans? I'm like, why?
It's one of these Welsh.
Yeah, it's one of these ones. Gareth Evans. Yeah, I suppose it's like the low key him flexing that he's no longer in the one set. He's just like, look at this.
I've got.
Yeah, look at this. Because this was initially his like first choice of film. Because I think he wanted to make like a prison drama, but he didn't have the budget for it or anything, so they kind of had to scale it back to being just basically a high-rise flat, really. And that's where all the action takes place in the first one. Whereas the second one, although it's the same city, it does hop from place to place. The weird thing is, and again, maybe I'm reading too much into this, but as you said, it's a really calm opening despite what's about to happen. And it's like a very slow, like they take their time. Because I remember rewatching this and thinking, okay, they're taking their time with this. They're not, like, rushing in. Because like some, or certain, like, action films, if it was the same scene, they would show, like, the car racing through the field. It stops, they pull the body out. The guy's saying, no, don't do it. And then they blow his head off and, oh, look at this, it's that. But in this, they allow it to kind of mature and just, like, let the audience kind of settle in and be like, okay, what's going on? This is... something's not quite right. But as I said, it's the main character from the first one, Rama. It's his brother that's under the bag, and eventually he gets shot in the head, and then it hard cuts to the title screen of The Raid 2. And you're like, oh, this is going to be good. Another interesting thing as well, and I don't know if this is like a kind of gimmicky thing that because it's the Raid 2 that he set the film 2 hours after the Raid 1.
That's a good point.
Because the only reason I say that is there was supposed to be a Raid 3, and I think that's what he said. It was supposed to be set 3 hours before the ending of this film, or something like that. So I don't know whether that's what he was going for, or maybe it's just a coincidence. It's really cool though. It like immediately follows up where Rama's getting debriefed by. Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry. No, I was just going to say like Indonesian anti-corruption, and I'm just going to point out there currently as we are recording this, there's a very popular BBC show going on called Line of Duty, and that's all about like the police trying to root out like corrupt officers and things. And let me just say, see if that show dealt with like corrupt officers the same as this film. Let's just say that the series would be a hell of a lot shorter. Because right off the bat, the guy just like pulls out a gun and executes Indonesian Clint Eastwood, who of course was like the lieutenant who led them into the building, and it was revealed like he was corrupt. And they just like do away with him. To which, of course, Rama is very moral. He keeps like saying that he won't, drop down to that level of, I'm not going to fight dirty and everything. And that is something that's carried throughout the film. And yeah, basically he sits there saying, we should have taken him to court, and there's a whole back and forth and everything. Like, you're a loose cannon. No, you're a loose cannon. Like, this whole back and forth, and it's quite interesting. Eventually he says no, and then he realises that his brother's been murdered, and he's suddenly... Also, sorry, before I go on, the reason they've brought them there is and correct me if I'm wrong, but did they not pretend that he was killed in the initial assault on the building, on the high rise in the first film? And they basically say to him that they want him to work undercover for them to catch, the big fish. They want the head honcho of the of the gangs and everything. And he's initially says no, but then after his brother is murdered, he realises that he wants to do this. And he only thinks, it's going to be, a couple of months, I'll be home by Christmas. And, no, that's not how it goes, really, is it?
Nope, not in the slightest.
No. After that, of course, he is, brought to the prison. And, I'm going to let you describe this bit, because this is just a wild bit, isn't it?
Is this the bit in the bathroom?
Oh, yeah, that too. But no, I just mean in general.
I'll let you do the bathroom bit, then I can do the other one.
Yeah, no problem. So... kind of a brief, fanboy trivia moment here. The action in this film is fantastic, and see the techniques that they use. In fact, I'm just going to fanboy about it now. Feel free to join in.
It is amazing.
See the choreography and the way it's shot and the tricks they use. They're fantastic. They are absolutely brilliant, and I don't think I've ever fanboyed as hard with, choreography before, or, filming techniques, but my God, this film gets it down to an art. It is.
Oh, it's so good.
So, I remember I was watching a behind the scenes thing, and at the start you see Rama in prison, and he's sitting in a toilet, and he's kind of waiting for something, and you don't quite know what, and then you realise it's other prisoners that are banging at the door, not to use the toilet of course, but to beat him up. And again, it's this very claustrophobic scene where all these goons come in just trying to beat him up, and he just annihilates them all. I watched a behind the scenes video for this, and I was like, I wonder how they did that, because it's very claustrophobic, it's very close. How did they do this? And then what you saw was, to kind of compensate for that, they actually moved the walls, which seems like a very minor thing, but they moved the walls with the actors. So whenever they were doing their stunts, they would move the wall kind of just a bit to the side and everything, and I thought, that is so cool. It's just it's a really minor thing, but I mean, the other scene later on is when there's a car chase, and instead of cutting to or doing a CGI one, what they do instead is they drive alongside this car, and they have this inside shot where the camera travels through the car itself. Yeah, there's a guy dressed as a car seat sitting beside like the guy driving, and he takes the camera and then he takes it through the car and then passes it to a guy who's lying like at the like underneath the car, or like at the side of the car. It's just the filming in this is great. Like I know I've just kind of like I know I've just kind of just ranted about like how good the cinematography is, but as it's brilliant.
It's on another level. It really is on
It
like
really-
complete- when you see like what they did, and a lot of it is. I mean, some of it is so simple. Just that
Oh,
idea
yeah.
of like moving the walls and stuff is something that's so simple when you think about it in practice, but like just builds so much more because you can. There's more space. He can bring like two guys in to like pummel on them inside and
Yeah.
everything, but at the same time, it still feels like you're in this kind of confined space. Like it's just really clever. It's honestly such clever filmmaking.
In fact, sorry, before I go on, I'll let you do the next bit, sorry.
Are we in for the mud fight?
Yeah, which I have to
Yeah.
admit, did you see the behind the scenes for that one?
I've not actually seen the behind the scenes for that one.
So apparently, I can't remember what the building is like in real life. It's not a prison, but I can't remember what it is. But apparently, Gareth Evans kind of looked and was like, "Yeah, this building will do," and it's like, "That's amazing." And
it looks like a prison, in fact.
yeah,
Like
because it's like they put up the not the barbed wire, but what you call it, like the gate around it, like the
Yeah.
courtyard bit, and they basically got, I think it was just like a massive tarpaulin they put in the middle. And don't get me wrong, like I don't know what I thought they had for like the mud, but they actually brought their own mud essentially. Like they just pumped all the
nice.
water in and whatever they used to mix. I'm assuming it was sand or something, or not
Yeah.
sand, but that kind of stuff. But yeah, they just like made their own like mud pit essentially, and then they had like trouble filming because of I think it was because of the sunlight or something.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think it was either too bright or which is kind of weird because usually it's the opposite way around. It's like they don't have enough light. But I thought that was really, I have to admit, I thought that was really interesting. Just the way they filmed that, it just like built up the set. But sorry, yeah, I'll hand it over to you.
No, that's
Right,
actually fine. I love hearing like more about how they film
Oh,
these
it's so good.
these scenes and everything because it's so impressive.
It's honestly one of the only films I would say seriously go check out the behind the scenes after you watch it because it's like you won't be disappointed with what.
It
'cause
just adds to it, doesn't it?
Yeah, because sometimes you see like action films and it's like, oh yes, today we are going to be fighting. See, look at this crazy behind the scenes. And you're like, that's not impressive. But in this, it's like, my jaw was just on the ground like, how did he do that? How could it? And it's all, again, as you said, it's all very simple tricks and things, but
Yeah.
it's so well done. It's so well done. But yeah, sorry.
No, so as Rama's gone into prison, he's now going by the name Yuda. So he's in prison to get close to the son of one of the most powerful crime bosses in I was gonna say in Indonesia, but it's obviously in the city of, I don't know if it's like the capital city or whatever. But anyway, the city that it's set in.
Yeah.
And so basically his aim is to get close to the son. And so the son's kind of introduced himself to Rama, but Rama's kind of kept his cool, kept his distance, just like pretended he's not interested, negged him a little bit. And so it gets to a scene where they're all outside, as you said, they're all in this outside. I don't know whether it's the yard time or if they're meant to be doing chores or whatever, but basically they're outside and it's pouring with rain and they're all sitting in this kind of U-shaped cover bit and there's just this giant mud like pit right in front of them. And it said it's surrounded by gates and barbed wire and there's prison guards on the outside. And then Rama's sitting there and he's got a broom, so maybe they are doing chores. And then he sees two separate groups of people coming like sort of conferring and whispering, and then he sees one of the prisoners like getting a shiv, and then he sees the shiv get passed around, and he sees these two groups come around towards where he's sitting, and he realizes that they're targeting the son of the crime boss who's called Uko. So they're targeting Uko, and Uko's the person he needs to get close to, so he realizes he's got to protect him. So he starts to the shot slows down and everything, and he puts his foot on the broom and he starts twisting the handle, trying to get it loose, and then you're like, is he going to get it loose in time? They're getting closer and closer and they're coming round, and then just as the guy's coming in to come and stab Uko, Rama gets the broom handle out, and then all hell breaks loose, and he's beating the crap out of people with this broom to start with, and then this big bruiser comes in and grabs hold of Rama and like throws him into the mud, and that's when it becomes this giant brawl, and then the action starts spreading into the mud pit, and the prison guards start charging in to try and get order, but then the other prisoners go and attack the guards, And this massive brawl just breaks out, and for such a chaotic scene of action. It's so well shot because you can follow round of what's happening. The camera kind of pans round and shows you. Not only do we see Rama and Uko like fighting against their like the assassins and everything, but we also just see like the random like prisoners just attacking the guards, and these guards desperately trying to fight for their lives and fend them off. And we even see two prisoners trying to use the chaos to make an escape, and they try and climb the barbed wire. They're shot by like one of the prison sniper who's up on the roof, and it's just this, and then more guards pile in at the same time. But it's such a chaotic scene, but it's so well done that you can follow what's happening, and you get this sense of this giant brawl that's just erupted.
I know that kind of sounds reductive to be like, it's fantastic. Moving on. Do you know what it reminds me of? It's like, you know when people say, it's not your grandpa's, like, something or other. You know, it's like, that's honestly how I felt in this prison scene. Like, I honestly winced. There's only, like, a few things in action films that make me wince. Broken Bones are one of them. Like, there's a guy that Rama fights who is... Yeah, it's like he's built like a shit brick house, and he, like, gets his legs snapped, like 90 degrees. And he nearly gets choked out. You get people getting stabbed. There's one scene, like, I just want to touch on that when you said the guards come out. There's one scene where a guard is, like, getting strangled, and another prisoner is, like, trying to rip his, like, jaw in the top half. Like, he's trying to, like, pull it out as, like, some kind of saw trap. It's like, oh no. And just there's a lot of that kind of gritty, visceral, and I mean, again, going back to like uneducated film theory here, I suppose. I mean, I guess it is like the perfect setting because you see like Rama, I was about to call him by his other name, you can see Rama, you know, like fighting in just this horrible, grim, you know, like disgusting, muddy hellscape, really, isn't it? Yeah. Like with people dying, getting shivved and everything, you know, like people getting their legs chopped, and it's just this brutal. And he's just like throwing himself into this world of like mud and well, not mud, but you know what I mean. Yeah, and it's kind of I suppose it's like a parallel of what's to come, really, because it's like you don't expect things are going to get better. You don't really, because I mean he ends up saving, as you said, he saves his the son of the crime boss, who eventually, because of that, he gets released, doesn't he?
Yeah, he gets released early.
Which is kind of good because earlier on in the film he gets like not a telegram, like a guy who comes in and is just like, oh, by the way, you're in here for years, not months. And it's like, what the hell? The reason he says that is because the reason he was in prison, which I don't get how he couldn't have just... Well, I suppose it wouldn't have been this legit, but the reason he was in prison was because he beats up like a very prolific politician's son, I think.
But it's also like the politician who put like Uko in jail.
Yeah.
So that's why they do it, because it's like a way for it's a way for them to, like,
of course, bond
to an extent.
Oh, of course, because he does say that, doesn't he? He says something along the lines of, "Oh, I'll give you two something to talk about." Okay, right, I get you. Thanks for reminding me that. Yeah, eventually, as you said, he gets out early and he gets like embroiled in, you know, the life of crime, really. And it just like goes to show like how deep he becomes, or how deep he goes into this life, really.
Yeah. Because
he's a very moral character, isn't he? He's very, his moral compass is very... it's pointed in the right directions 90% of the time, but throughout the film it starts to kind of waver a little bit, because like one of the scenes, I'm kind of like jumping ahead, but one of the scenes I'm thinking is when they go to collect money from like someone operating in their district or their turf, and remember it's the guy who has like the really seedy business of burning DVDs, I was gonna say. Yes, that industry of lewdness. And of course he's like trying to expand his business, that was not a pun, and of course because of that, the kind of like like gives the hint to like his subordinates, oh, by the way, yeah, things are going to get ugly, to which Rama picks that up and he just absolutely pummels them, or 90% of them. He pummels a lot of them, essentially.
Yeah.
And when he's chasing this other guy, that is like one of the first moments you can see his kind of descent into playing the part, I want to say. Because, like, remember how the boss of, like, a seedy warehouse is just, like, lying there broken, bloody, he's just bruised, and he, like, grabs a baseball bat off of, like, just this random guy, and he goes to, like, beat him again, and then he realises he's, you know, he's not, yeah, he's not moving, he's just kind of, like, breathing as a horrible bloody husk, and it's like, oh, okay, and he's like, okay, yeah, better stop, and that's kind of, like, a hint into, like, well, not a hint. It's like, it's as much the hint as, you know, like getting smacked across the face with a baseball bat, but, you know, we'll get to that bit soon.
Can I give a shout out before we go? Can I give a shout out to the character, like the character who gets the baseball bat off, who's like, so he chases the I don't know what to call him. I mean, I better not call him Michael, but he chases the other guy, and then he like throws him through a window into this like small, dingy, like apartment, and the tenant of that apartment's in there, and he's just sitting in the corner, like terrified out of his mind, like holding his baseball bat. Then Rama just goes up to him and starts just slapping him around to try and get the bat off him. This guy is sitting there terrified, like can't even like let go of the bat. He's so scared. It just cracks me up as like Rama's just like slapping him around the side of the head and everything to get his baseball bat. Yeah, I had to give a little shout out to that character. And
of course, that is just it kind of, I wouldn't say it goes downhill yet, but it certainly shows the life that he's going to be leading for the next couple of months. Yeah. Especially like when he meets the like head boss, because I think his first introduction is he gets told to strip in front of him.
Oh yeah.
Purely for the wire. Like they're checking to see if he's got a wire. It's something I actually didn't realise, but I'll remind me to like talk about it later. There is one bit where, like, when they're searching for the wire, he doesn't realise that he actually does have a wire on him, and it's been planted by the police officers that are working with him. And he, like, says, oh, don't do that again. Almost giving this level of, like, distrust, isn't it?
Yeah.
Of, like, you know, how dare you? How do you do this? And then, of course, eventually, like, do you know what actually reminded me a little of? You know the latter half of License to Kill?
Oh yeah, that's a good point.
Just that kind of, I know it's like a basic story of like, you know, good guy infiltrates like bad headquarters and everything, but it was quite, well, I would say this is a lot more brutal than License to Kill.
Surprisingly, even despite somebody's head exploding and
because I mean it's like you see you see like the brutality and the kind of like contrast between the head of this organization and his son, who is just this horrible hot-headed mess. You see him, or you see both of them go to this karaoke place, and he's just being so, like, you know, verbally abusive to women that have been hired to sing and, you know, like, talk with them, and essentially.
Yeah.
And he is just, like, you know, saying, like, he's above them, he's, you know, that kind of sets the scene of him being so impatient. Like, you can tell there's kind of initially, like, some kind of charisma behind him. But then after that, it's like you realise, this is a guy you do not want to... Like, he's not in a volcano. Yeah, it's like, it's not so much you don't want to cross him, it's like, you just don't want to make eye contact in case he blows up. Because it's like, he ends up nearly just going ballistic up until one of the... woman presses the panic button, and even then the guy who's supposed to be protecting them is like he's just terrified. He's like,
that's an awful day at work for
you. He's just like, is everything okay? Yeah, and he's just like, we're fine, aren't we? And he's like dragging this poor girl's head as if it's like a puppet. It's like, gee. And then fortunately he gets a work call which leads him to like Rama rather, to put like a tracking beacon into his wallet. Or not a tracking beacon, sorry, a wire, like a wiretap, which is very handy. So keep that in mind, guys. Keep that in mind. for the later
I'll
half.
always check your wallet.
What happens after that? Is it the meeting that
Yeah, so
happens?
he
Yeah.
goes off. So Uko goes off to meet Beho, who
Mhm.
is like the new kind of new kid on the block, the new bad guy, who is the one who killed Rama's brother,
Mhm.
or didn't kill him personally, but like ordered him killed in the beginning, and that's the person that Rama's kind of going. Well, as much as Rama's like there to like help root out like police corruption and everything,
Yeah.
and like the collaboration between like the organized crime and the police's like senior leaders. Like he's on his own mission to basically take down Beho
Yeah.
and avenge his brother. So yeah, Uko gets a call from Bayo, who's like trying to make his way up, and basically the organized crime in the city is divided between two families. You have Uko, so you have like the kind of native Indonesian crime family, which is Uko and his father Bangun. Is
Yeah,
that his name?
Bangun. Yeah, yeah.
Bangun, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's they have, and then the other half is divided between basically what they keep calling the Japanese family,
Is that
the
the
Gotos.
yeah, the Gotos.
The
Yeah.
Gotos, yeah.
Yeah.
And then Bayo is basically trying to carve out his own, like, trying to carve himself out as a major player.
Mhm.
And he tries to enlist Uko. And as you say, he plays on this whole like Uko's frustrations, and his Uko's like he's like chomping at the bit basically to
Yeah.
get more responsibility from his dad, but his dad's holding him back because his dad can see exactly the kind of wild card that he is.
Mhm.
And he says to Rama as well, like he's trying to keep a control of him. And so but Bayo kind of plays on that with Uko, and they start to kind of concoct a plan to rise up the ranks.
Can I just like point out one like particular? It's a very minor scene, but I think it kind of shows like what kind of people these are. When basically the guy from earlier that he nearly beats with a baseball bat, the guy from the warehouse, they eventually Uko's family, or I don't know what you would call them, employees, henchmen, whatever they
Let's
are.
call them employees.
Yeah,
It sounds
employees.
nice that
Yeah.
way.
Yeah, they probably do have benefits, but yeah, they end up like getting rid of the body and they're just like digging a shallow ditch. But like a couple of meters away, the head of the family and the whole business venture is like just fishing casually at this riverside, and it's really just like, huh. Okay, this must just be a daily occurrence, and he does. He like talks about, he starts like having a kind of like a close moment with Rama, kind of saying how he always noticed that his son was very hot tempered. He doesn't want to believe the worst in him and everything. And Rama tries to beef him up and be like, "Oh no, he talks highly of you. He talks really well for you." Yeah, and then 2 seconds later, yeah, he's slitting throats at a vacant restaurant. But that's another story.
Also, that line the father has after, like, as you say, he's
Yeah.
fishing away, and then after the body's about to be like buried
Yeah.
and stuff, he's just like he turns to Ram and he's like, "Throw the fish back." Like,
Yeah.
it's not good around here for
Yeah.
fish. And you're like, "Oh god, this is obviously where all the bodies are buried / dumped."
Yeah.
You don't want to be eating these fish.
Oh, it's just like a small thing where it's just like, oh god, it's great.
Is that grim? Is that a very dark humor?
Yeah. So yeah, of course, that leads on to the something that probably confused a lot of Raid fans when it came out. So basically,
Confused me at the time.
yeah. So basically, Baho and Uko like strike a deal, and they basically plan to try and instigate a gang war. And they try to do so by killing. I think initially they kill Uko kills these random henchmen in like the restaurant when they're at the meeting, because he's instructed. Baho says, if you kill them, then yeah, it's gonna be it's gonna be great, I swear. And that'll, as you said, that'll lead to them teaming up to be able to take over with their own turf. But yeah, he kills them and he goes to his dad and he says, "Dad, look what they've done." And he's like, "Yeah, it's fine." Well, it's not fine, but he's just like, "Okay, it's kind of a minor thing, but we won't retaliate." So he throws a hissy fit and he thinks, "Okay, how can I like scale this up?" And he goes to a family friend who, if you've seen the first Raid film, it's the same actor who plays the character Mad Dog. And he's playing a different character in this one. Can't remember. Do you remember what his name is?
Prakozo.
Yeah.
They call him like Kozo, I think, a lot of times.
Yeah, no, that's what I was thinking, because I know it's Kozo, but I was like, what? I was like, what's his Christian name? But yeah, he you can see he's like a kind of merc for hire, I suppose, or not even a merc, like just an
assassin, basically.
Just an assassin, yeah. Like he goes up and sees this rich guy just walking and flaunting his cash and everything, and then he gets like driven through with a machete, and you're like, oh no. So yeah, Koso like goes to, you know, you can tell he's. I mean, I have to admit, I do like the fact that they developed his character somewhat because he's
Yeah.
basically a family man outside outside of his business ventures with the machete. You know, he's a family man paying off his like child support, and he gets called away to like discuss with Uko about the basically like saying don't listen to Baho and everything, and don't, you know, just keep your head. You know, you've got
Wait your turn, you know.
yeah, basically kind of quite a peppy speech, isn't it? He's like, you've got
Yeah.
this, you know, you've got fire burning. And then he looks down at his locket, and then this is a bit, I kind of thought, okay, this is a bit weird, where he's like looking down at his locket, which has got a picture of, I think it's his child, isn't it?
Yeah, son, yeah.
Yeah, and then he looks up again, and everybody is. So they meet in a club to like discuss this, but as soon as he like looks up, it's like a Looney Tunes moment where everybody's gone from the club, and it's like the DJ's gone, all the patrons inside, all the dancers, like everybody just, you know. Do you know what would have made it funnier? See if like they had a seat just like spinning. It's just like, because he looks up and he's like, where the hell is everyone? How long was I staring at this locket? And then, of course, like, even Uko, who was talking to him, is just like, oh, I'm just going to the loo, you know, that old excuse. And he walks away, just going to go freshen up. And then, of course, when he looks up, he sees all these guys flooding in. And he have to admit, he does make, like, a good, or he puts up a good fight, doesn't he?
He kills all of them. Everybody who comes into that club.
Yeah.
The henchman, he kills them all. Like we don't see, excuse me, we don't see anybody else coming out of there. Like, like, oh, sorry, I'll let you get explained, but yeah, he does have a good fight.
No, go on. No, I was just going to say, because even Uko, like, he ends up escaping the club, and then he looks around, and Uko's standing at the door, like, Jesus Christ.
You're still alive?
No, like, what? So much so that they have to hire a specialist to finish him off, and it's like, oh my god, this is getting ridiculous now. Which, of course, he does get, like, he finally bites the dust.
Oh yeah, sorry. Just to describe like that, because actually for this fight scene, the Raid 2 is, I'd say, it's a far more. I'll be interested if you agree with me or not, but I think it's a far more artistic film than the Raid 1 in the terms of going back to what you were talking about, that very opening shot, and you know, the kind of deliberate and like kind of way it's done and everything. And watching, because I just rewatched this film again a few hours ago, just before this, and watching that kind of fight scene, I think you can see a lot of artistic kind of elements there. So granted, again, it is like another kind of classic like large scale fight, and it is that very much like that same sort of like fight to the death, like, you know, this is people like life and death struggle here. And I think that actor is, I'm not even going to try and pronounce his name because I'm going to have to butcher it. But like, he is so good at doing that kind of like that, you know, like that kind of fighting where it's like you're pushing yourself to the last, and you know, it doesn't matter, you're going to scratch, claw, you know, whatever you do to survive. And like, but like, there's so many parts around that fight that's so artistic. So even that thing about like the time lapse there we were talking about, he just stares down at his locket, and then all of a sudden this packed nightclub is just emptied and everything. Like, even that kind of, that's such an artistic choice to do that. We don't know how much time has gone. And then when he gets outside the club, for some reason it's snowing, and I don't know a lot about Indonesia, but I've never really associated Indonesia with snow. And maybe it does snow there. I don't know for a fact, but it's interesting because at no other point in the film is it anywhere remotely close to snowing. It's just this one scene. But it's such an artistic choice, and it really highlights, because there's like a last, as you said, like Procoso like stumbles out of the club like bloodied and battered, and then so there's still the last of the henchmen are out, and he's like slicing them up, and the blood is like spraying, and as violent and as brutal as it is, it's almost kind of like that. It's almost like art in a way, you know, the way it's such a striking contrast against the kind of clean white snow. And then, like as you said, as he stumbles back, and then I think his character is just called the Assassin. I think the kind of bad guy with his like curved knives. What he like slices up Procoso, something serious. And again, it's just the artistic way of the blood spraying out, and as he falls to the ground, just the blood just kind of like spreads almost like a canvas, and so this very violent canvas. It's just a canvas. It's just such like a, I don't know, like, and then you've got Handel's like Sarabande, like this famous classical music tune playing in the background for this final bit, which is so like different to any of the other music that's been in like either of the Raid films. It's just this like fantastic moment of just art, of really really violent art. and also as well, it kind of feels a little bit like a kind of almost a passing of the torch. So in the way that the guy who kills off, although he's not Mad Dog, in this film, it's still the same actor. We kind of see that the torch of like violent psychopath, who's like who's absolutely like who's such a skilled fighter. That torch is almost passed from like the actor playing Mad Dog to this new guy, the assassin. And who's like we establish him as like he's going to be the real he's the real threat, and we know that the final confrontation is going to have to be Rama versus him. So it's a very good way of showing that as well, of establishing like a real threat.
I mean, it definitely foreshadows what the assassin is capable of, because I mean you see Rikozo take out like a club full of henchmen and come out. Granted, he's bloodied and bruised, but he comes out relatively well considering. To take on that guy and just get absolutely mauled is like. And kind of going back to your point about the snow. I mean, again, this is probably me going back to standard grade English levels here, thinking. But is snow not usually like associated with hiding things? Because I'm thinking that's the only scene with snow in the film, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because again,
it is. It's the only one.
Because again, this might be me reading too much into it, but like the idea of Rikozo being like, I suppose, like a sacrificial lamb, pretty much for this gang war to occur. It's really fascinating because, as you said, that's the only scene where it's like the operatic music or classical music, sorry. And
it's operatic though in the way it's done, like in the competition.
And it's the fact that it's this betrayal and the fact that the snow's fallen on top of him. Like, in terms of snow, I think, and again, this could be me reading too much into it, but the idea that the snow, of course, is like covering up, blemishes. Because that's a thing in writing where it's like, they describe snow covering everything and it's, it's untouched, it's perfect and things. And it is kind of like symbolic for what Uko is doing here. It's like, he's basically covering up like a horrible, horrible crime by just basically smothering it, really. By getting this guy killed, and then they basically do not drag the body away. I can't remember what they do to it. In fact, I
think it's left there. No, I think it's just left.
Oh, right. Yeah.
It's like because then he lies out, and then you see the blood just like pouring out into the snow.
Yeah, I suppose that's symbolic as well of how like cold Uko becomes.
Good point.
He is just like, this seems to be the turning point, because I think it's one thing him killing. I mean, you can tell he doesn't have a qualm with killing strangers.
Yeah.
And even then, he doesn't kill this family friend. He kills, or he lets like the assassin do it, which again is him like distancing himself from people who should be in his life, supporting him, but for obvious reasons they're not going to be anymore. And there's just such a brutality to it, and it is quite a poignant scene, which of course then leads to him running to his dad again, going, look, they killed Koso, look, they killed him. And the dad's just like, yeah, I'm getting pulled into the office by my management. Which is, of course, like is it not like a family above both of like the Goto family? And...
There's like the police. There's like the police authorities who are like the kind of uneasy like truce makers. This kind of corrupt triangle of the two crime families, and then like the police leadership trying to although we find out later some of the police are playing their own kind of game as well. But it appears as this corrupt triangle with the police leadership trying to like keep this truce going so everybody can make money. Basically, the palms can keep getting greased.
It's just ridiculous. It's like, how many people are
not a flattering portrayal of Indonesian police.
It really is not. No, absolutely not. Rama seems to be the only shining example.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, it gets ridiculous at some points where you're just like, okay, he's corrupt. I wonder if he's corrupt. It's just that cycle. I suppose it goes into that like idea of Rama can't trust anyone. He's just like constantly looking over his shoulder going, well, can I trust him? Can I trust them? Yeah, that of course leads to this bit, like action-wise is fantastic, but I'm a bit iffy about this part of the film. So basically what happens is Uko goes to his dad and he basically gets slapped around. In fact, no, sorry, it's before that. He basically says, look, they killed, our family friend and everything, and he starts yelling at him, and he's like, oh, we're not going to cause a gang war. They keep, going back and forth. So then he, even has an outburst at Rama saying, oh, you don't know me. And then he basically just says, F it, let's just go for the plan. The plan, of course, being to instigate this gang war with Baho. And he basically, how to put this in the gentlest way? Yeah, it is a massacre, isn't it?
It is. It is a high body count.
Yeah, they just start murdering people from. Is it people
the Japanese family? They start murdering. So they're trying to. So they go around to murder high profile people in the Japanese crime family to try and make it look like the Indonesian Bangun's gang have done it. Yeah, have done it.
Yeah, I honestly don't know how to feel about this bit. The reason being because you might think, well, what's wrong? What did they do different? They introduced two technically, essential characters, which become, let's face it, they are very memorable characters in this film. That, of course, being the Hammer Girl. I don't know if they've actually got names in this.
Hammer Girl and baseball Batman. That's the official names. Yeah. That's the official names in the cast, in the credits.
Yeah, that's what it, honestly, because I was thinking, do they have, actual names? And it's no, it is, it's just Hammer Girl and Baseball Batman, which is, it sounds like a bad superhero name, but trust me, it's these people are just, absolutely brutal. And I do like what he was trying to go with, because they've got a very unique fighting style, where Baseball Batman, of course, go figure, he uses a baseball bat to beat up his enemies.
And baseballs.
And baseballs as well. He has a very good trajectory. Whereas his sister, who is deaf and partially blind, I think.
Yeah.
She goes around beating people up with hammers, and that bit made me wince because it's a claw hammer. So on the other end, it's got the bit to pry open nails, which instead of nails, just imagine spines and rib cages, and that's what she essentially rips open. It is gruesome. It's absolutely gruesome. I was just oh no, this is.
I said to you, I've said to you multiple times, Hammer Girl is the scariest character I think I've ever seen in a film.
Oh,
if there's one character I would never want to meet in film history. Give me Dracula, give me a werewolf, give me freaking Godzilla before I have to meet Hammer Girl. Hammer Girl terrifies the crap out of me. Oh, and he's not in the film that long, but oh my goodness, that scene on the subway is the most brutal thing I've ever seen.
Oh, it's when she's beating them up, and you can see she's not even ripping through them. Well, she is, but she starts hitting one of them like a xylophone, essentially, and she's just do, and it's oh my god, no. It's what is going on? Because you see the blood spots come up on the the shirt and everything. It's oh, this is grim. But the reason I'm saying other than the action's absolutely fantastic. But the reason I'm kind of pointing out and saying I'm not 100% sold in these characters, I just feel they're very gimmicky. I don't want to undersell the raid and be oh, it's a a Saturday morning cartoon where they've it's oh, we can't defeat the main hero, so let's outsource to these wacky characters. But it just seems like a very weird choice for an otherwise semi-grounded. Don't get me wrong, obviously there's some things of disbelief you have to suspend, but I don't know, what do you think about these characters? Other than them being terrifying, of course.
You are totally right in that they are very gimmicky. But I think they work. Well, for me, this is just my personal opinion. So, for me personally, I think they work well because you said before they are highly memorable. I'd argue they're some of the most memorable characters out of any of these two films, because you remember, you're oh good, you remember the hammer, you remember Hammer Girl, you remember the hammers, you remember the baseball bat. And I remember when I first saw them, I was when I first saw Hammer Girl, I was I was that way of both being absolutely in awe and also being absolutely scared out of my mind.
Yeah.
But all I could think about when I saw them was my God, I can't wait for Rama to fight them. And I think that's why it works for me. Is that it's you only see them kind of fighting in that kind of bit there where they're first introduced. But I was like, I cannot wait for Rama to square up against these two because it's gonna be good. And so for me, they work. And also like Hammer Girl's terrifying, but Baseball Batman, he's one of the funniest scenes for me in any of the Raid films. Is that scene where he's introduced, where so he batters his way through like. He's going after one of the high-profile Japanese gangsters, and he batters his way through all his like guards, and he gets to the bed, and the guy's like doing a drug deal or something like that. He's doing a deal anyway. Yeah. So they don't see Baseball Batman coming, and he just like he pulls a baseball out of his pocket, and he just judges the distance and everything, gets set, then he throws the ball in the air and he smacks it straight into one of the guys, not like the guy he's after, but the other guy's head. Yeah. And the other guy's just like, this like head just explodes in front of him, this baseball, and then he starts running away, and then Baseball Batman throws another baseball and hits him like square in the back, which just looks painful as anything. And he's just like crawling on the floor, and then he starts walking towards him, and he's like, give me the ball. The guy's just like, I'll outsmart him, and he picks up the ball and throws it down this like lift shaft, being like, haha, what are you gonna do now? And Baseball Batman's just like, that was a mistake, and he just comes close, and the guy's like, oh no. just gets like absolutely like just battered to death with the baseball bat. And another very artistic scene where every time like Baseball Batman hits him in the head, like the camera shot moves back and goes further and further away. So for me, like they're just such memorable characters, and I just remember being like, I couldn't wait to see that like the confrontation between them and Rama. So that's why they worked for me. And you're right, they are very gimmicky, but again, just speaking personally, like it worked for me.
No, they are iconic. I will give you that. They are definitely... like, if you think of the Raid, I have to admit, when I was thinking of this film, because I haven't seen this film in years up until I watched it for this episode, and yeah, those were the two, like, characters I really remembered. You know, of course, they... I don't know, it's just I remember that scene in the subway of basically her just tearing through all of these poor people. And yeah, it's a marvel for the eyes, I suppose, but just it's brutal. Like it made me wince, I have to say.
Oh god, yeah. It still makes me wince watching it. I've seen it like so many times now. I still like curl up in my body, like like contort myself together as she just rips through like bone and sinew with these hammers. And what makes me laugh as well is that so she's on like a packed subway train, and there's like she's at one end and like the guy she's after and all his guards are at the other end. So she pulls her hammers out, and one of the guards spots her, and they all draw their like katanas or swords or whatever. I don't think they're quite katanas, but they're like kind of short swords. Yeah. And everybody in the train sees this like swords and like panics and runs away. And I remember just being like, you shouldn't be panicking at this. You think you should panic at the swords, but actually it's like freaking hammers you need to be worried about. Forget the swords. Those goddamn claw hammers.
I have to admit though, like, although I kind of said they were gimmicky, I think like the thing that at least grounds them in reality is like the fact that they're such normal weapons, if you know what I mean. Like it's not like I don't know for a fact, but it's not like a customized claw hammer with like I don't know it's gonna eject if you press a button or it. It's like it's literally just it's like literally two claw hammers, and the other guy's just got like a stainless steel I think it's stainless steel, but just like a metal bat,
it looks like that.
Really, and it's like that's all they've got. It's like it's not anything over the top. It's not anything, you know, I wouldn't say gimmicky, but you know, it's like it's not anything like outlandish, or it's not like something you would see at a Monster Hunter or something like that. It's going to transform. It's like it's
not
just
like Cloud Sword or something.
Yeah,
like that,
it's like just a regular weapon, and I think that's kind of the terrifying thing when you're like, okay, right, that he's literally just got a baseball bat, and look at what he's doing to these poor people. And that's the same with this with Hammer Girl. Oh, she's just got two claw hammers. What are you going to do with those? Oh my god! And yeah, just
I still get the fear every time I go into a hardware store now.
But I mean, speaking of the fear, see that scene that swiftly follows up with Rama and the taxi. That poor taxi driver. So it's like Rama gets into a taxi and he's just like, oh yeah, I want to go home. And then just as he's about to like drive off, these guys, like you can see them running like from outside the window, and they just smash this poor guy's face in. And then he luckily manages to just escape, and they end up going into, I think it's a Chinese restaurant.
It's
like that.
restaurant.
Yeah, he ends up like. He manages to defend himself, but there is one particular scene, and I'm going to look back onto what I was saying before about like him losing his, not losing his humanity, but kind of losing his moral compass in a way when he basically grills like a guy's face. Do you remember that bit? Where it's
Yeah,
like,
yeah. I was just laughing. I was like, my God, he grills it for a good amount of time
yeah,
as well.
because you can
It's not
see
like grilling.
yeah, like you can see he's getting like angry when he's doing it and he's yelling at him and then eventually he lets go. And it's like just that moment where he absolutely loses himself. And I did think that was quite a neat touch. But then of course he realises that was a undercover police officer that he just nearly murdered. Well, I don't know if he murdered him. But he wasn't moving after that scene, so
He was
probably.
convulsing because he no longer had half a face.
Well,
his
that
face
is true.
Melted off by that point.
Yeah, half his
Probably
face
wishes
was
he
on the
was
grill.
dead.
Oh yeah. Good point. And then, of course, that leads to the escalation where, basically where Uko makes his move, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and he ends up shooting his own father, slow-mo style, and then shooting his, like, bodyguard.
Yeah, it is right, man.
Is it Ika? I think his name
Ika,
is.
yeah.
And then, of course, just as he's about to shoot him and kill him, Rama comes in and you think, oh great, Rama's here to save the day. And then he gets his ass absolutely handed to him by the assassin, which, I have to admit, although, like, see, the next scene is absolutely spectacular, there are a lot of times in the film when you kind of think it feels like a kind of by the books, like, instead of, like, see, just killing him right there and there, then and there, they say, like, oh, put him in the car, we'll dispose of him elsewhere. It's like, you know where this is going. You've seen evil speeches before. You know what's going to happen here. But they do it anyway, and it leads to quite possibly one of the best action car chase scenes I've ever seen in my life.
I'd say perhaps the greatest action scene I've ever seen.
Oh yeah. I mean, do you want to like dive into this one?
I mean, I can dive into it and just feel free to jump in. By the way,
oh no,
just
go for it.
We can tag team this one.
Yeah,
much like Rama and Ika doing this fight.
Oh,
so as you say, Rama's been like knocked out. He's come face to face with the assassin. But like, and the assassin's kind of taking him down because Rama's like too full of rage and everything. And Bayo's there and he's trying to get his hands on Bayo, so he's not focused. And so the assassin like knocks him out, and then you say he gets put in the car. But Ika's managed to get away in all this. The right hand man of Bangun, and he gets in a car and starts following. And so basically, there's like a convoy with the rest. So Rama's in one car, and then there's like two other cars guarding, and there's like an SUV and then a bike as well that are kind of this moving convoy. And Ika's like coming behind, and Ika like manages to phones Rama's phone, and Rama sees that it's him, and so he's kind of braced for the action. And then Ika like slams into the back of the car that Rama's in, and all of a sudden Rama's just going ham on. There's four guys in the car with him. So there's one guy driving and three other guys, and Rama's just going absolutely ape on these guys, just like beating them off, and as the action is like going from front seat to back seat, like into the boot and everything. And at the same time, Ika then is trying to fend off the other vehicles in this convoy. So the other two kind of normal cars try and sandwich Ika's car, and basically he manages to knock one into like this, I don't know what it is, but it's this deserted building anyway in the middle of it. One of the cars ramps up and crashes through that, while the other car the other car like manages to do that, what do you call that pit maneuver where like you spin a car around, so it's like pushing, so Ika's got his car in reverse and the other car is like driving him forwards, and Ika looks behind and sees this concrete barrier, and at the last minute he turns the car, wheels the car quickly around, so the other car just slams straight into it, and the driver just flies through the windscreen and bump right on the bonnet, and then he goes back in pursuit. And meanwhile, Rama is just going ham on these guys, and the fight in the car is just so amazing. Like it harkens back to that very claustrophobic action of the first film, where like, and eventually he manages to take one guy out. He kicks him through the window, and they happen to be passing a truck at the time, and the guy cracks his skull off the truck and is killed. He manages to kick another guy out the window, and so the guy's like hanging out, like just his legs just in the car, his head's like bouncing off the ground, and then he gets like, there's like a broken down car at the side of the road with his door open, and he smacks into that and is killed. And so like there's only a couple at the same time, like the poor guy trying to drive the car is just trying to drive it, and so Rama keeps grabbing him at points and like choking him and like punching him and stuff as he's trying to like drive. And then like the motorbike comes up on Ika, and Ika manages to like basically grab hold of the rider and like gonna grab him on. He has one of these automatic pistols, and he just like point blank puts the pistol right up to the helmet and just disintegrates the guy's face.
Oh yeah, that
Basically,
is brutal.
in another brutal scene. And then the SUV comes up, and there's a guy with a shotgun in the SUV who's like trying to take a shot. And I think he manages to clip Ika. I think he does get like hit at one point, and then it becomes this amazing like race where both of them have like emptied their weapons and both need to reload. But the shotgun guy drops all the shells on the ground, and so he's desperately trying to pick them up while like Ika's like searching for a spare magazine in his car. And then it's this race. Ika manages to just get the car, just get his gun loaded and blasts it into the other and takes out the SUV. As Rama like ties up the final guy in the car and then like slices his leg on a window and then manages to pop the boot of the car, and he jumps out and jumps into Ika's car, and then I don't know, I guess the guy driving the car just had enough and he careens the car around and he gets hit by a lorry.
Yeah, it's
just amazing. I can't do it justice. My feeble ramblings there just can't do justice to how like good it is.
Like, I know I touched on it before, but at the very least, if you don't see the actual action scene, like, watch the behind the scenes for this, because it is crazy what they did for this one.
Yeah.
As I said, they had a guy they had like a trolley that drove alongside the cars, and then they passed it into the car. I have to admit, there's a lot of continuous shots in this film.
Yeah.
Which I thought was quite interesting, because you don't usually there's a stereotype of in these action films, it's like you gotta cut, and it's like, one punch cut, other punch cut, but they seem to try and seamlessly transition them. Like even with going back to the Hammer Girl and baseball bat guy, like even when they like hit their victims, it's like that transitions as well, doesn't it? And it's quite smooth, because it's like, remember when Hammer Girl's got the last guy who is just like he's just like a terrified wreck, and he's holding the like leather bag and everything, and he's like, oh, don't kill me, and she raises her hammer and she like pulls it down, but then that leads on to the next scene and it kind of seamlessly goes on. Like, there's a lot of things like that. And as I said, there's that one scene where they pass the camera through the car, and then it kind of like goes through the car, and then it goes out of the car like to the side. And the way they did that, as I said, was they drive like right beside that car, and then they pass the camera through. There's actually a guy dressed as a car seat. He takes the camera and he pulls it through, and then he gives it to a guy that's like hanging on the side of the car, or like just underneath, and it's like, this is insane. This is just absolutely brilliant. It is absolutely, as we said, we can't do justice. You have to like experience it and watch it, and even watch the behind the scenes, because these guys are so talented. Like the ones who like filmed it and everything, it's just perfect.
Even having seen the behind the scenes thing, I'm still in awe of how that fight was shot and choreographed and everything. It is absolutely incredible, and it's like the perfect example of what the Raid did really well, which is simultaneous action. Of different characters like in life and death struggles at the same time. Like, it's just a perfect encapsulation of that. I'm just in awe. Honestly in awe of what they did.
So that eventually leads to before we get to the final showdown, Ika reveals that he too was a police officer undercover, which I thought was quite interesting, up until he kind of turns around and he's like, oh, by the way, I'm just going to go and die now. Like, it's like, okay, bye. And then, of course, I think it's revealed he was like in too deep, I think. And the police kind of turned their back on him because he gave them like really bad information. That's what he says.
Yeah.
He gave some really bad information like a couple of years, like I think 10 years ago or something, they say. So he's like been in for a long time in this family. Yeah, so he eventually dies kind of alone in this like abandoned town, which is quite sad.
Yeah.
But then, of course, that builds up to the finale where, of course, his boss is like, where are you? And everything. And he's like, oh, I have to do this on my own. And, all of this, all the good stuff. And then he just ends up driving into the warehouse. And I know this is your favourite segment of the film, so without any further ado, I am going to let you describe, like, what happens at the end.
I feel so bad. I feel I'm getting to describe all the fun things. Again, please just like feel free to jump in and join me on this. But like, just before we get into this, I love this final series of fights, which builds towards like, so he's going to, again, it's very much like it kind of harkens back to the first film and the fact that Beho, Uko, and then there's also like the corrupt police chief are all at the top of this building, and Rama's coming in at the ground floor and he needs to go up, and it's a very condensed version. But to me, I love it because it's almost structured, I think, like a kind of video game in a way that like it's like different levels, and then he has like, so he starts off with kind of like this big group fight that he needs to get through, and then he gets to the various bosses to get to the end. So I quite like it that way. But as you say, so he's made his call and he's made his piece of what he's going to do, and then he just drives the car straight into this warehouse. Like this guy gets caught on the bonnet, and then he just like brakes, and the guy goes flying into a shelving unit. It's great. He then like spins the car around, knocks these guys down, gets another guy caught on the boot, and then just hits the car in reverse and just stamps it into a wall with the guy still attached to the boot, who just disappears into the wall, never to be seen again. And then Rama's just going ape on all these guys. And being a warehouse, there's some great things. So he's able to throw guys into shelving units. He kicks this guy, and this guy like smacks his head off this metal beam and then straight into the concrete, which I love as a thing. Another guy gets kicked over these metal stairs. One guy gets hit in the face with this giant water-like bottle. It's another great kind of like, I say like a group fight, but it's one person versus like a large number of opponents, and I think it's just a really good example of that. Like the films have done really well before. But so he makes his. Oh, sorry.
No, sorry. I was just going to say, I have to admit, like I think I brought it up in the last like raid discussion, but I think like a sign of like really good action is when they have a setting, and then they use that setting to their full advantage. Like, I think that's something that these films do fantastic. As we said before, from Rama, like, shoving that guy's face into the grill, to using, at the very beginning, where, the prison fight, where he uses, like, his broomstick and everything to, like, fight off people and things. It's just, it's those kind of small things that are just, it just, like, really pulls you into the action. But sorry.
Yeah. No, it's a good, like, it's such a good point. And like they really do use the warehouse to its full, and he's running all over the warehouse, the different bits to use it and stuff, and it's great. So eventually he beats down all these guys to various stages of death or like incapacitation, and he's done, and then he sprints up the stairs to go up the next level. And we keep cutting back, so we cut back between, we see Rama like fighting his way to the top, but also Uko, Bayo, and the police chief are having dinner up at the top, and we can see Uko's mind is just like fracturing now. He's just dealing with like the choices he's made and everything, but also at the same time, he's made this move to gain like the ultimate respect and to be the big player, but still like the police chief calls him sidekick at one point, and you can just see this still just like building up inside him, and so we keep coming back. And also as well, he realizes as well, Bayo's got a cane, and he drops it at one point. As he bends down to pick it up, he reveals this tattoo, and Uko recognizes it as a tattoo from one of the guys who tried to kill him in the prison in that big mud fight. So he puts two and two together and realizes that that Bayo tried to order his death in the prison. And as well, he finds the bug in his wallet that Rama planted like ages back, but he thinks it's Bayo who's done it. So he's putting all this together in his like fractured mind, and you can just see him. He's sitting at the table and he's not saying anything, but he's just getting ready to explode. And so we're cutting between the two of them, Rama and Uko. Anyway, so Rama's made his way through the ground floor, and he keeps going up. He takes down a couple more kind of goons in this kind of like, it's not really a reflecting hallway, but it's like got like kind of decorative panels. They're kind of lit up and stuff, and I think they've got glass in front of them or something like that. And he rounds this corner, and as he rounds this corner, this baseball comes flying, just missing his face, and like embeds itself in the wall. And he turns to see, and we see everybody's favorite duo of Hammer Girl and Baseball Batman standing at the end. And then Baseball Batman delivers his iconic line, "Give me the ball." In which case, Rama doesn't even bother with the ball and charges towards them. And then, so as you said, Hammer Girl's deaf. So Baseball Batman kind of knows sign language, so he speaks to her, and he does the sign for same as usual. It's like, as usual. And then they just go into it, and there's flurry, and there's hammers flying around, baseball bats. They're smashing into the walls either side, and it's just this great. This was the bit I couldn't wait for, just to see the three characters go at it. And Rama's like holding his own, and he's like trying to dodge like flying the baseball bat flying around, these hammers like going crazy. There's one bit that I love where the baseball bat man tries to choke, kind of gets his baseball bat around Rama's neck and is pulling him back. But at the same time, Hammer Girl is like striking the ground, trying to hit his feet. And
I love that.
Rama's desperately backing up. I love it. And then manages to fling the baseball bat man away. And then he eventually gets hold of Hammer Girl. And he throws her into a wall and knocks her. She always wears sunglasses, and her sunglasses fall off. And we see that as you said earlier, she's partially blind. And then, like, so the two of them are going at it. He's kind of incapacitated Baseball Batman for a while, and he manages eventually to get hold of like one of the hammers in Hammer Girl's hands and basically slits her throat with it. In which case, Baseball Batman goes like into his ultra beast mode, and just starts swinging like crazy. And he knocks Rama off his legs and like smashes him in in his ribs and everything with his baseball bat. But eventually, Rama manages to like get control, and he's in another absolutely brutal bit. He slams Baseball Batman's head into like the wall. He then like kicks him like straight into like the throat, and you can tell it's like ruptured his what do you call that? Basically, your larynx or
something?
He's basically like done some serious damage, and he picks up the baseball bat and just swings it, and he swings it straight into Baseball Batman's face. But we don't see, because the camera kind of does this like spin, another kind of artistic thing, and then all of a sudden we're at the other end of the hall from where like the action's taking place, and we can just see like the baseball bat embedded in Baseball Batman's face, and he's like slumped against the wall. And Rama lets go, and we just see Baseball Batman just slide down to his left. And then as he falls down, the baseball bat hits the ground, but doesn't move. So he's just propped up because Rama's hit him so hard in the face that it's just embedded in his face. And it's just like, just the violence and brutality. I was just like, oh my God.
And I mean, there is a kind of like irony there, isn't it? I mean, like especially for the final fight as well, but like for the three main like bad henchmen, I want to say henchmen for hire, they all get killed by their own weapons, don't they?
Yep, it's a good point. That's a very good point. They do.
Yeah, like Hammer Girl, as you said, like gets absolutely bloodied by her own hammer. Baseball Batman, and then of course
he's very well acquainted with his baseball.
Oh yes. And then, of course, the assassin, which I know this is one of your favourite action scenes. I know we were talking about this before.
Do you want to talk about it? Because I feel like I've been monopolising the time. So if you want to talk about it, I can jump in afterwards.
No, go for it. Because I know this is like one you were really looking forward to. So I'll let you do this scene. Yeah.
As I said to you, this coming up. So basically, after he's dealt with Hammer Girl and Baseball Batman, Rama pushes through the doors they were standing in front of, and he enters a kitchen. And so he's very near the top now. He's just a few doors away from where Uko and Bayo are, and there's all kitchen staff in there. But on the other side of the kitchen, we see the assassin standing there, just like standing silent as he always is. Then the kitchen staff take one look
and just run
and just quickly vacate the kitchen as they should, in a very orderly fashion, I must say. Orderly evacuations.
Absolutely, they've trained for this probably.
And so, as I've said to you, this fight I think is the greatest fight in a film ever. Like in terms of a fight scene, I think is the best one I've ever seen. And I think I will ever see, just in the way it's choreographed, in the story it tells, and everything. So what I'll do is I'll run through the action. So I don't monopolize all the time here, and then I'll just quickly say why I think it's so great. But basically, Rama and the assassin kind of square up and they get into a fighting stance. And they start by doing a few quick strikes at each other, and it's just like that kind of way. It's almost like a kind of bit of showmanship, in that way of who can strike the fast. And they do that a couple of times, and then eventually, after a while, it grows. It evolves into this more kind of martial arts style fight, and they're using their like blows and their moves and counter moves and everything. And it's still quite a contained fight at the minute in this one part of the kitchen. But then after a while, it develops into more of a brawl, and they start like the assassin gets kicked like over the table and everything, and like the kitchen starts coming into play, and the assassin picks up a tray and like smacks Rama in the head with it, and that kind of signals that they're going to start using their environment now. The fight broadens out. Rama smashes the assassin into this like rack of wine bottles and throws him through like a glass kind of screen into more wine bottles, then kicks him out another one, and the fight is intensifying. And at this point, the assassin pulls out his two curved blades, and he gets one underneath, is it Rama's left leg? Underneath Rama's left leg, and he slices like behind the knee.
Oh, it's horrible.
And stuff. And then like that's when and then he starts slashing at Rama with his knives, and Rama's desperately trying to protect himself and dodge these blows, but also do some damage. And eventually Rama manages to get his hands on one of the blades. And then they start like squaring off, and he's taking chunks out of the assassin as the assassin's taking chunks out of him. At the same time, they're still like smashing up the kitchen and everything. There's one great prolonged bit where they're both like trying to see who can smash whose head the most times into this like stainless steel container into the thing. Which is great. And then eventually it's like this blood all around the floor. They're both sliced up, But as well, what I love as well is you can see both of them are just absolutely exhausted at this point. And they had to take a bit of time to like kind of breathe and gather their like, gather themselves together. And there's one bit where they're really close in towards the end, and they're just like they kind of hit each other for a little bit, then they'll just kind of grab on and take a couple of breaths, hit each other again, take some breaths, and eventually Rama manages to gain the upper hand, and he just slices the assassin to pieces. All across the chest, the back, slices down both his arms, and then goes for the killing blow right into his neck and just twists the knife in. And just pulls it out, and the assassin's body just falls into him and just slides off him. And as I said, what I think makes this so great is I love the way it's divided into phases. I absolutely love that it starts with this little bit of showmanship. It's a way you can see almost the assassin's quite cocky because he's already beaten Rama. And Rama by this point has been through 4 other fights before to this one, and he's battered and bruised. And so the assassin almost kind of takes him lightly. Doesn't give him the full credit that he really deserves. And so that's why he doesn't pull out his knives. And it starts as a more classic fight. And after the showmanship, it is that kind of martial arts, like what you'd see maybe more in like a kind of Jackie Chan or a Bruce Lee film, where they're doing these kind of fights. And it's still quite contained, though. It's in a relatively small part of the kitchen. But I love that when it expands out into your more brawl. Every time, basically, Rama always manages to get the upper hand towards the end of these phases. And every time the assassin, brings something new. So he starts using the environment because he realizes the threat that Rama poses. So he uses the environment to try and gain the advantage back. And then when that doesn't work, Rama's getting the upper hand, then he pulls out his knives to his weapons to take control. And that's when it moves into its weapons phase. And this is far more like the kind of fighting that we've seen in the Raid 1 and the rest of the Raid 2. For now, that kind of really life and death, gritty struggle. The music for this scene is absolutely fantastic as well. It perfectly mirrors the action. And I just love when they both have the blades and they're both just bloodied and bruised and just absolutely shattered and exhausted, but they're just going on pure adrenaline and that will to live and just kill the other person. And just there's a great scene where they both hit each other with their knives, but the knives meet in the midair, and the camera zooms in on it and everything, and then just the way it was choreographed. It apparently took 8 days to film this. And I think just those were 8 days well spent, because for me, I remember seeing it the first time in the cinema and just being this is the greatest thing I've ever seen. And all I could think about when I left the cinema was, I cannot wait to get hold of a copy of the Raid 2 so I can watch that fight over and over and over again. And I still come back to it. I don't always watch the Raid 2, but I will always go back and watch that fight because I love it so much.
Apparently that's the director's favourite scene as well.
I
mean, I suppose you can tell because it took them 8 days to do it, but at the same time, it's his action love child, as it were. In this film, it's his labour of love, and you can tell it shows because, as you said, there's just so much care and thought and just effort, really, isn't it?
There's no wasted motion. Again, harking back to when we were talking about the Raid 1 being such an efficient film. That fight, the final fight in the Raid 2 is such an efficient. There's no wasted motion. Everything serves a purpose, and we get to see we get to see Rama's desperation and just running on pure adrenaline to get his revenge and see this through. And the assassin as well, just first underestimating Rama, but then realizing the threat he's facing and just again this life and death struggle. It's very akin to that the Mad Dog Rama and Andy fight in that way, and I think it's a great piece of storytelling.
Because they definitely, as we said before, it's definitely foreshadowed when Rama just thinks flashing back quickly, is, as you said, when he goes to reach Baho, thinking, oh, I'm going to get him, and then there's that kind of yoink, and it's no, you're not, and it's the assassin just pummels him and just absolutely tears into him, and you think this is the standard they're setting for the finale. This is the mountain that he's going to have to overcome, because the other guys are small fries. They're not going to matter, but this guy is going to cause some trouble, and as you said, it's so well done, it's so well crafted, isn't it? I just love it, and thank you for giving me time to go on my diatribe. No, not at all. I love it because I know you really love this scene, and I love for good reason. It's just so well done. And of course that leads to Rama confronting I don't want to say the main bad, I suppose they
technically are.
I want to say this in the loosest terms possible, the brains, because basically Uko, as you were saying before, puts 2 and 2 together, and when he finds the when he finds the like wiretap in his wallet, he puts it like two and two together, and he gets four-ish.
Yeah.
And there's this brutal scene where Baho like runs and he tries to get the like a shotgun to defend himself with, and he like shoots the guy who Rama's fighting like when he breaches, and then Uko like grabs a gun as well, but instead of like aiming it at Rama initially, he aims it at the police commissioner and just blows him away. And then he blows away Baho, who just like slumps to the ground, but he shoots him twice. I think he shoots him once in the leg, and then he shoots him once in the like kind of chest area, shoulder chest, which means he's like a gurgling mess on the floor. And this was a very brutal scene, because he walks up and he just like mic drops, literally. He mic drops him onto his body, and he's just, and Bal was kind of looking like, what the hell is that? Like, but obviously he can't respond because he's been like shot through the chest, and then he just aims his gun and he just blasts his head into like, the only way I can describe it like is a watermelon like falling from a tall building. And that's honestly what it looks like, and you're like, oh, like it's at a distance, it doesn't zoom in, but even then you're just like, oh, that is brutal. It's absolutely, like, as I said, the violence and the action in this is so visceral, in your face. It's something.
It is something.
Yeah. Apparently the song got banned in Malaysia, I think.
Really?
Yeah, because of the excessive violence, and it's like,
Fair enough.
it's like, well, I can see
They ain't
why.
wrong.
They totally aren't. But yeah, of course, Uko tries to turn the gun on Rama, and I think he manages to like not outwit him, but just as he like shoots all his shots, he like dives over this couch that he was hiding behind, and he brings him down and he stabs him, and eventually like it's quite a, again, I'm using this word poignant a lot, but it's quite a sad scene where he stabs him, but instead of like, you know, struggling like the others, or, you know, like doing, you know, like what what the assassin did, he just like slid down. Like, he actually embraces him in a kind of hug, doesn't he? And you're kind of thinking, oh, what's he got planned? But it's just nothing. It's just he's hugging him because I think he's probably thinking, you know, there's a scene kind of before all of this kicks off where he goes into the bathroom and you can tell he's like feeling very regretful about his life choices, because even before that, like before he shoots his dad, like he's yelling at the dad saying, I want to be the very best, I want to be, you know, top dog, and the dad's just like, you realise because of you we've lost everything here, like there's nothing left. And he's like, then he kind of regresses and he's like, oh no, I can fix it, and it's like, no, you can't, you know, like the whole back and forth, and it just builds up this like sense of guilt. And then the only person, although he was undercover of course, that kind of not reined him in, but, you know, treated him normally, if you know what I mean. Yeah, it's just stabbed him in the chest because he nearly shot him. To put it very bluntly. And he's just like in those last moments, he just like collapses to the floor. Yeah, that's more or less where the film ends. Rama like walks down the stairs again, which must have been a bitch. After fighting all those people, I hope there was an elevator, because my god, like having to walk down all those stairs again, I would have given up. I would have just been like, no, if the police are coming, they can come up here. And then of course he goes downstairs where he's met by the Japanese group, and they're ready to like kick ass and like, because there's an earlier scene where they're like, right, we're gonna have to go to war, there's no other way, and they've got like their weapons prepared, and they walk in and it's just Rama standing there all bloodied and bruised, and they're just like, oh shit. Also, sorry, just before I kind of wrap up with the plot, did you notice, the fight with the assassin? See when he brings out his knife and then he cuts his cheek? Did you notice it's the same place that he gets cut in the Raid 1?
Oh, is it?
Well, it's a very similar place. At least I think it is. I could be totally wrong in that.
Because he's got that scar, which I quite like. He's got that scar from where the machete would like slice through his face in the first raid. I didn't realise that actually.
At least
awesome.
It's kind of the same area. Like, I just mean it gets like sliced on the cheek, but I don't know. It was kind of a neat tidbit. I was like, okay, neat. Then they go back to fighting, but of course they start talking, but it's inaudible. I don't like they purposely do it where it's just inaudible, and I thought that was just because he had like a shotgun like fired in his ears, but apparently not. And then he like looks up and then he just says, "I'm done," and then it just hard cuts into black, and then it hard cuts to the title of The Raid 2, and then it goes into the credits and everything, and it's like, it is one of those films where it's like you have to take a breath and just be like, whew. It's like, do you know what it's like, or what it reminds me of? It's like, you know when you eat too much at, like, Christmas, and it's like,
Yeah.
you loosen the belt, and you're just like, oh. Like, I feel as if, I feel as if this is like the action equivalent of that, where you're just like, oh my god, this is just so much.
This is the action equivalent of a Christmas lunch. I love it.
It
They put that on the box.
Yeah. I would go see that film. I'd be like, oh, cool. But yeah, it is just a roller coaster start to finish, which sounds like a cliche to say, but how else could you describe this?
I don't think it is a proper roller coaster is the best description, because like one of the strengths of like the first film was how tight it was in terms of time, and how it is breathless, in that, like, you know, it's one action piece after another after another. But with this one, like, the action is given a chance to breathe, and, you know, like, you'll get like an action set piece, but then there'll be, like, for the first part of the film anyway, there's a lull. There's quite a bit of like downtime in between, so you kind of like, oh, you can digest. You're like, God, like, you know, the hell he was, you know, just I'm trying to think of one, like, what now, but, you know, like, oh, that guy was just ripped apart with hammers, just there, you know, like, you can, like, which kind of is the shocking nature of it, or he just grilled that guy's face right off there. So yeah, like a proper roller coaster, because you're at the high points of the action, but then like you get a lot of low kind of just like character development, scene setting and things like that. So it does really get a chance to breathe the action.
And I suppose because there's like a bigger scope for this film, that they do have a chance to kind of develop the characters more. Like with, of course, Rama being very regretful that he has to go undercover to protect his family and everything, and, you know, like, it's stuff that's been established in the first one, but this gives it a chance to, like, you know, it gives it a chance to breathe a bit more, as you said.
Yeah,
it's just, it really hits the point. And I don't want to end on a negative note, but if there's anything you could kind of pick out about this film that maybe didn't really hit home, like, is there anything that you weren't a big fan of?
I think the thing that I'm not as much a fan of is the fact that I would have loved to have seen a third Raid. I'd love to have been a trilogy, but I think they shot their bolt in this film, in that, like, there's nowhere really to go. I think that actually the material that's in the Raid 2, you could have separated out to make two films. I genuinely believe you could have had. I think if they'd spent a bit more time developing the kind of Rama Uko bromance, if that had been a central tenet of the second film, you know, and it's maybe Rama's descent into the criminal underworld is like the focus of that one, and then say, I don't know, the film ends with like Uko's betrayal, you know, perhaps something like that, that way, and then we can lead into a third film, you know, and end it that way. So I think, in a sense, there's maybe just too much tries to happen. There's too much going on in the Raid 2, which I think is maybe a bit of a detriment. I think the only other thing I would say is that I don't think the film as a whole is as rewatchable as the first Raid.
Oh yeah,
like I could pop the first Raid in and watch it, like, you know, it's a quick burst and hit, and it's great, and I can watch it from start to finish. If I'm going to watch the Raid 2, I'm most likely going to probably go on YouTube and be like, fight scenes in the Raid 2, and watch those action pieces again. I'm not as likely to stick the DVD in, watch it from start to finish. That's maybe the only other thing I'd say, but again, it is a different kind of film to the Raid ones. Again, I don't know if that's really a detriment, but I suppose to me, like, you know, it's not as rewatchable, I'd say.
No, I totally agree with you, because, and again, I do agree, it's not really a detriment, but it's like, the Raid one is just a very basic, you know, catch the bad guy thing, you know, with the whole, like, corruption subplot, like, being underneath it, whereas in this one, there's a lot more depth to the story. But I do agree with your point when you say there's too much going on, like, especially with the Mad Dog actor in this one.
Yeah.
I feel as if his character, because I was saying this to you before we came on tonight, but I feel as if his character, like, you could have cut his character out and nothing would change. Like, don't get me wrong, it's always a delight seeing him, like, perform on the screen and, you know, do all of these amazing action scenes. Like, he's such a talented actor, and I know, like, we had said that he is actually proficient in Silat. Like, he's really, you know, he knows his stuff, and he's such, like, a good, I don't want to say stuntman, that is slightly reductive, but you know what I mean.
He's a good, like, martial artist.
Martial artist, sorry. That's a better term, yeah. He is just such a good martial artist, and I just feel, because, like, what follows that scene, so once he gets killed, So this is the thing, like, initially Uko kills the random people that, like, tried to attack him in the prison. And he's like, oh, Dad, look, they killed our guys. And he's like, I don't care. Or not that I don't care, but it's like, I'm not doing anything about it. Then they kill Kuso, and it's like, oh, they killed Kuso. And it's like, right, oh, okay, fair enough. Bad things happen, but okay. And then he just goes ahead with his like gang warfare plan anyway. So it's like there could have been a step that they just like cut out in between. Like they could have just cut that scene out entirely, or that section of the film almost. Don't get me wrong, like it's still still a purpose to it. It's not like one that I would definitively say, oh, cut this out, cut that out. The only other thing I would say that I'm not a big fan, as I said, is the like not. That I'm not a big fan of, but I'm just mixed on Hammer Girl and Baseball Bat Guy, because I feel as if for a story that's meant to be this like prison drama, that they're kind of looping back to, or not looping back, but they're just, because even in the first Raid film, see, other than Mad Dog, there wasn't really any characters that stood out like that, was there?
No, not
like,
really.
No really gimmicky ones. Like, there was one that could fight. There was Machete Man. I mean, but, it was like, they were just normal guys, whereas, I don't know, it's like, I just keep thinking, what kind of, like, yellow pages are these guys looking in to find these people? Yeah, it's just, I don't know, like, I'm not gonna, like, sit here and be like, oh, it's terrible, it ruins the film. It doesn't, it makes it memorable. Like, they do have their bonuses that it does make the film memorable, and, as you said, it makes for some of the best fight scenes in this entire film. With the train fight scene, with the baseball bat guy hitting people with baseballs. It's just, it's classic. And yeah, like, other than bits and pieces, I would say, like, and again, I don't want to like rile up any sensibilities here, but I feel as if this is definitely a lot more brutal than the first Raid film. This is to say, like, the Raid is a film where a guy gets impaled through the neck on a door stump. Another guy gets sliced. People get like blown off a balcony and thing, or the banister thing. Like the Raid 1 is a brutal film, but the Raid 2 like makes it look like
the Raid 1 has a child getting shot in the head, and still the Raid 2 appears.
Yeah, exactly. That poor child gets like shot by the corrupt officer, and it's like, despite that scene, somehow the Raid 2 is worse in that regard, and it's like, it is absolutely balls to the walls insane. So, all I would say is, if you're a bit squeamish, like, in regards to that kind of, brutal action, like, yeah, I would definitely say, if you're not a big fan of really bloody violence, I wouldn't say it's like Saw levels, but it ain't far off.
No, it doesn't. I don't think it feels. Well, this is me personally. I don't think it feels as maybe like gratuitous. As
absolutely. There's a purpose to it. Yeah.
Yeah, you do feel like you're like it's more fitting. I feel.
Yeah.
Like, something like a Saw film where you're like your whole film here is based around gore. Yeah. Well, at least I don't feel like the Raid 2 is based. The Raid 2 is based around action. And like the actual fighting and the violence and the brutality is like an offshoot of that, rather than being like the raison d'etre.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, as you said, the violence kind of stems from this world that Rama's kind of leading himself into.
Yeah.
And yeah, just it gets worse and worse and worse, and you think, how could it get any worse? And then you see him,
look, there's a girl with hammers.
That should be delightful. And then it's like, oh no. God. Okay, what about baseball, man? Oh my god. What about this lovely assassin, man? I don't know why I bother. It's just. So yeah,
is that going to be our joint Halloween costume for this year? By the way, baseball Batman and Hammer Girl.
Well, it depends who's going to run out and buy a hammer faster. Well, you've got the baseball, so does that make me the Hammer Girl then?
I think by default, I guess that means I think it's an easier costume for me. I just get a black hoodie.
Oh yeah, that's true.
You get a black hoodie and a baseball bat.
Yeah, you'll just be throwing it at my door, going, "Throw it back."
The ball.
Yeah, I just lock my door, like, no, I'm not playing your games. So yeah, before we wrap up on that note, is there any final thoughts you have about the film?
Yeah, just to say again, I really love this. I love both of these films. I love
Yeah.
like the series of them. I do wish there'd been a third one, but it seems that the director Gareth Evans he's just not interested. He wants to do other things, and fair enough. Like I suppose like he's made two great films. I like the fact that they are slightly different. I like the fact that the Raid one is a pure like action film, while this one's more of a crime drama.
Yeah.
And so I think it's good that they are kind of separate entities in a way. Cause I think this one would have been cheapened if it had been just like a kind of clone. Let's say rather than having to go up 15 floors, they had to go up 30 floors. Like that kind of sequel thing of like artificially raising the stakes. But I love both these films. Like all I'm gonna say is once we're done here, I'm gonna go off and watch that final fight again because I love it.
You know what? I don't blame you. Yeah. If you, as I said before, if you love I was gonna say brutal action, but
if you love brutality,
if you love if you love Mortal Kombat without the supernatural powers, then this is probably for you. Yeah.
Put Hammer Girl in the next Mortal Kombat. Yeah. That's it. I'm starting that hashtag.
Oh God, please do. Yeah, it's as you said though, it's a shame that they didn't actually get a chance to make the third one, because I think the plan initially was they was going to make it it was going to be set 3 hours before the ending of the raid. I don't know how that would have worked, but
I don't know. I guess it would have been a different character then. It wouldn't have been Rama.
Yeah. And then
I don't know if I approve of.
No, I don't think so either. But then again, the main actor who plays Rama, he has been in. Oh God, he's been in so much since.
Yeah,
he was in a film called Headshot, which that was a good martial arts film. It wasn't. See, this is the thing. Maybe this is just my biases creeping in, but I feel as if because I've watched him in the raid and I've watched him be like this amazing kick-ass, like martial artist as well, and I see him in something like Headshot where I'm like, he's good, but it's not the raid. And then he was in a thing called, I think it was Woo Warriors or something like that, which, oh God, or Woo Assassins, sorry, it was Woo Assassins. I did not like that at all, but that's another rant for another day. That was one I think really underutilised him, but yeah, again, it's again another Satsunami for another day. But yeah, definitely. As long as you don't mind the bloody gore of action, as we said, or as you pointed out, it's all for a reason. 9 times out of 10. It's a consequence of setting and the scene that's set up. So it's not 100%. As I said, it's not. Yeah, it's not gratuitous. There's points to it. So yeah, I would recommend it. Or at the very least, just see the behind the scenes. I can't stress this enough. Just the work that went in, just amazing. So yeah, go watch it, please. So yeah, Adam, as always, thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of Satsunami.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for having me. I will always come back and I'll always talk about the raid to anybody, man, creature, woman who will listen.
You're just like, yeah, fight me. I'm ready.
Inanimate object. I'll tell them all about why the raid 2 his final fight is the greatest thing ever.
Put me in, coach. I'm ready.
But thanks. This was a lot of fun.
Oh, it really was. And it was good watching the films again to kind of refresh why they were so good.
Indeed.
They really are. If you want to see more of my content, you can catch me on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and of course Twitch under the name Satsunami42. If you want to catch up on more episodes of Satsunami, which after this episode I know you guys will want to, you can catch us on Anchor, Spotify, Castbox, and all good podcast distributors. Please feel free to check us out under the name Satsunami. Every week we do a live show on Twitch at 7:30 PM BST. So if you want to check us out live, then yeah, feel free to drop by. And don't forget your snacks as well, because yeah, we can talk for Britain, can't we?
We can and we shall.
We always will. As always, guys, thank you all so much for listening. Stay safe, stay awesome, and most importantly, stay hydrated. Bye, guys.
Bye.